Okay, so some of you have asked me from time to time, how do I make a worship aid? And I had one request that actually specifically asked me, how do I do it in Adobe InDesign? Now, some of you may be using Word, some of you may be using Publisher, but what I have found really, really useful and really helpful is by using Adobe InDesign as my publishing tool. Adobe Creative Cloud is what you want to get, and the InDesign piece is for publishing documents like worship aids and things like that. So here's the icon that's open right now too. I'm going to open up a couple of examples that I have, and I'm also going to then walk you through the process of creating one, a very simple one at first. So let's open this up. And I have, you can see on the toolbar here, I have actually two documents. I use worship aids for virtually everything that I do in liturgy. So we don't have hymnals, we use worship aids. And the reason I do that is because I have the copyright licenses from onelicense.net, which also allows me then to use music from OCP and GIA and World Library and a whole host of other publishers. And it makes it really, really easy because then that way I don't have to rely on one hymnal. And also, once you buy a hymnal, and I know the publisher is going to hate me for this, it becomes obsolete as soon as you open the box. This way, if you've got more music that's being produced by the publishers, by some really fantastic composers, then you can start incorporating them into your worship aids. So, for example, here's a worship aid that I'm doing for our school liturgy on December the 3rd. And I'm in InDesign. And this is a simple two-page worship aid. As you can see, I'll scroll down, and then you have to kind of move over just to see what the two-page is. But I'll just highlight a few things that are on here, and then I'll show you how to create them. It looks like it's backwards, and it is that for a reason, because this is going to be an 8 by 14 sheet of paper, 8.5 by 14 sheet of paper folded in half. This right through the center would be the crease. So what I am just looking at right now with my cursor, that would be page 1. And then down here on the left-hand side, this would be the inside of page 2. As if it's opened up, this would be page 3. And then if you go back up, then this would be on the back side. So this is front and back, and the other page is the inside pages. Now, if you've ever done anything in Publisher, in Publisher, you know that there are things called text boxes and there are image boxes. You have a toolbar over here that has all kinds of fun things to do, and you have a description page over here that tells you what's going on with that particular document. Some things that I want to point out. The selection tool here, your type tool, and these boxes, rectangles, things like that. Those would be your most common items that you're going to use. So, for example, I wanted to create a text box here. Okay, let me put this on the pointer and I'll highlight that. I'll click onto that and I'll show you what it does. So it opens that up. If I wanted to change the date or the time or whatever I want to go over here to text, and then I can come on over here and change that. I can change that to, say, December 4, 2018, which would be the date of this webinar. And then I just click off of it, and it'll save that. Okay, so now it's saved, and now you've got that. Same thing with my parish, too. I went ahead and made sure that we have the parish, and our logo is right here. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So that would be the text boxes. So anything that has a text, you want to use a box like this. To create one of those, you simply make sure you're clicked onto that tool, and then you start with your left arrow, left cursor, and then just drag it over to how wide you want it. Okay. And then you can start typing. So I'm just going to type in gibberish right there. So see, you can see that it just fills that all in. And if you want to see what kind of fonts and different kinds of things that you're in, those are over here. So for example, if I wanted to change that, if I didn't want that to be in Minion Pro, say I wanted it to be in Arial or something like that, I could just click onto that. If I wanted to change the size of it, I could then make it, say, 18, which is going to be too big. Do you see that plus sign right there? That means it's too big for the box that I've created. So now what I've got to do is I've got to come up here to my pointer, the selection tool, and I've actually got to make that box bigger so that the font fits there. Okay, so you can change the size of this text box, type in the text that you want. You can change the font and do all kinds of fun things here. To get back to that font, remember, just go back here to the text tool, okay, and then click on inside that box, and that'll tell you what's there. If you wanted to get rid of that, the easiest way to do that is to just go up to your tool selection. Make sure you click onto the box. You see all these little boxes here. That means that this is highlight. I'm just going to hit my delete key and get rid of that, okay. And I don't want to keep December 4 because I'm going to be using this for my school worship aids, so I'm going to change that back to December the 3. Okay. Now I'm just going to make sure I save those changes. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and just say save. Now, you see all this music. Okay, well, there's a way that you can do that. First of all, let me get rid of that for a minute, and I'll show you how we did that. I'll just drag that on over here. What I did was I went up to my tool selection, and I clicked onto that box with my left button, and I simply just dragged it over, and then I let it go. Now, if I want to create more music inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on over here to my rectangle frame tool, click onto that. Now, with my cursor and my left button, I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm still holding it down, and I'm just dragging it down to whatever size I need, like that. Okay. Now, you see the big X? That means that's where your target stuff is going to go in. What you want to do is come on up here to this selection tool, click onto that, and now remember when I was doing all the Allegro Finale files and creating files, I created TIFF files too. You know, just because you have Allegro Finale, you're not going to be able to bring those into your worship aids. You have to create TIFF files. So I have a whole folder because over the years I've created hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of TIFF files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my TIFF folder, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to place. That's the terminology that they use, place. Click onto place, and now I'm going to go into my TIFF folders. Because I do this so often, it goes to quick access. But say, for example, you weren't sure where it was. Well, what I did was I made sure that in my OneDrive, which is where I save everything, in my documents, I've got a folder that says TIFF music. So I'm clicking onto that, double click, and I have a whole bunch of extra stuff in here. So I'm just going to make sure I go to my TIFF files. So say, for example, I wanted to do O Come, O Come Emmanuel. So I'm going to just drag us on over here to where I have O Come, O Come Emmanuel. As you can see, I have lots and lots of folders here, or lots of files. I'm going to click onto that once. It comes right into the file name, and then click Open. And now it's going to come right into that box. But as you can see, there's lots of space here, and it doesn't look like things are lined up correctly. That's because it just defaults that size. You see this bullseye, this target in here, and my grabber tool? Think of this as a box with some contents in it, and you can control two different things: the size of the box and also the size of the content. So I'm going to click onto my bullseye. Did you see that kind of amber or orange color? Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this in to fit that size box. And now I've got my music already there, sized exactly the way I want it in that size of a box. And I'm just going to click off of it. So now it's there. That's exactly what I just did here, but I just recreated it here for you. The same thing with this graphic. I have a whole lot of graphics on my computer, but just so that you know how I did it, let me drag that off of there and I'll show you again. I'll minimize this and I'll show you. I have something on my desktop already that I went ahead and saved just for you guys to watch this. But I went to Google and I just clicked on image, and I clicked on to, or I typed in Advent candles, and I was taking a look at several different images that I wanted to save. When you click on an image, do you see the size of this? It's 1493 by 1600. You want to get something that is as large as possible in terms of pixelation, because when you import it into a worship aid, the smaller that number is, the less clear that picture is going to be. So I found this picture. It's 1493 by 1600, which is really super enough to do. So I'm going to click off of that. What I did was I saved it to my desktop so I knew where to go. So now let's come back up here. I'm going to put that little candle graphic right in here. So I'm going to click onto my rectangle frame box again, and I'm just going to make a frame box here. All right, so now I got to put something in it. Well, I got to make sure I come on up here to my selection tools, and I'm going to come up to File, and I'm going to try to find out where I put it. Okay, so I'm going to click File and hit Place. Now I have all kinds of places to go to. I didn't save it in my TIFF files, which is what just opened up, but I saved it on my desktop. So I'm going to click Desktop, and sure enough, there it is, Advent Candles. So I'm going to click that once. It fills it right in there. I'm going to click Open, and there we go. Okay, but now you see, you don't see the whole picture. All right, so now let's click onto that, and we create that amber outline of what the picture actually is. We're going to reduce that so that it actually fills that box up. And we're going to drag it up in here. It looks a little bit squat, so let's give it a little bit of a more realistic. There we go. That's a little bit better. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. And then what you can do is you can center it in your box. Okay? And then click off of it. Now, if you can reshape this box if you want, or you could just leave it like that. When you print, you're not going to see any of these outlines of these boxes. This just happens to be where that picture is. You can move this over, and you see that green line there and the purple line there? That will be a centering line, okay? So that if you want to center that picture, you can center it like that. Now in here, again, I just have a text box that I put the citation for the reading, the first reading. Over here, you can see I have the psalm, the gospel acclamation that we're doing, citation for the gospel, some outline things for the liturgy, some music, and I did these exactly the same way that I did that opening song. And I then have it created up here. And so it's ready to go. Okay. Now, depending on the printer that you're using, I have a really good printer, and so I have it already set up so that my printer will actually fold and it staples and does all kinds of fun stuff. You may not have that. You may have just a single printer, and when you go to print, you have to tell it what to do. So I'm not going to go through that because your own printer settings are going to be something that you're going to have to figure out on your own. But the way to do that, don't go to print booklet, just go to print. Okay. And what it's going to do then is the next page that comes up, it's going to tell me what I did. Now, I created some custom settings in my printer. I don't want 40 copies right now. I'm just going to say I just want 1 copy. So I'm just going to type 1. And to look at what the setup that I have here, just to briefly show you what I have, I'm going to go into Setup, and it'll show you. I have several different printers to choose from, so I have it going to this printer. And now I'm going into Preferences, and it's going to show me, this is the big beast that I have that prints all my booklets. It's just going to be normal print. I'm going to tell it the size of the paper, so you got to make sure you do that. You're going to probably want to make sure that this prints so that you can fold it and it will be visible in the right direction. So most of the time you're going to have to look for a setting that says this. You don't want one-sided, you don't want just two-sided. You want two-sided and flip on the short edge. That means that it's going to flip on this short edge. So when you flip the page over, then it'll be in the right orientation and not opposite each other. And I have a booklet creation. In mine, I can go to booklet creation and I can tell it to do some funky things here, like just a booklet fold, booklet layout, booklet and staple, things like that. So I have that already set up in my presets. That just tells you how to tell your printer what to do. But if you just have a simple printer, or maybe you're taking it somewhere to have it printed, make sure that you have the copyright license with you, because I've had that occasion where I've had to take something to a printer and they say, well, you've got copyrighted music here. I need to see your license. And if you produce the license, then they shouldn't be giving you any problem like that. Okay. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. So that gives you an idea of how to do a simple 2-page worship aid using your Allegro Finale. All this music I created in Allegro Finale. And now let me show you a couple of other things here. This is a booklet that I do every month for our parish, and it is actually a 22-page booklet. You can see over here, it's double-sided, so it's actually 44 pages. So what I do for the whole month, I have the table of contents here, and as you can see, the pages look like they're opposite each other. That's because when you do a multi-page booklet, the way you're going to have to lay it out is you're going to have to go right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left in sequence like that. And the best way to do it is to make sure that you put page numbers down there to keep track of what's going on. So here's the left side of page 2. Okay. Then the next page over is going to be page 3 and page 4 and so on all the way down. Now, like I said, I created a 44 page. So this would be where my staples are. This is the inside of the booklet, 22, 23. Then when you start laying it out, it goes opposite. Then it'll have to go left, right, left, right, left, right. Okay. So that, I just wanted to kind of show you what you possibly can do with that. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to create from scratch a whole new template. All right. So I'm going to go up to New, Document. Okay. And it's going to create this new document now. Now, right here, right from the very beginning, I got to tell you something. Units like this, you're not going to understand what these are. You're going to have to convert these into inches because it just defaults this way. It goes into picas. All you have to do is click onto that, go to inches, and now you've got 8.5 by 14. And I laid it out in orientation landscape. You can also do it in portrait if you want, but that would be a crazy size booklet. Or you could just do an 8.5 by 11 if you wanted to do that too. I'm telling it that I want pages facing each other. And I'm also going to tell it, normally this is 1, so let me just get back to that. It'll open up to be just one page. And if you did that, it would just be the entire page. But what I want to do is I want to do columns. Now the columns are going to be half the width of that page. You see what I just did with my arrow. So I'm going to tell it 2 columns. And these are the margins here, half an inch border all the way around. I think that's too much space. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reduce it down to 1/4 inch. Okay. Now, did you see they all changed at the same time? That's because this little tool here is a link. If you break the link, then you can change the margins individually. But I like to keep it together because that shows you all the margins equidistant. Okay. So now I've got 2 columns and I'm 8.5 by 14, which is what I like to use. You can use 8.5 by 11 if you want. And now I'm going to hit create. So there you go. Here's 1 column. Here's 2 column. Okay. Now, you notice that's only 1 page. Well, I need to have a facing page. I need to be able to turn this over. So I'm going to come on over here and I'm going to erase that, delete that, and type in 2 and just hit enter. And now it created another page. Okay. So you'll have another page to create. There you go. You can do that with as many pages as you want. But just remember, when you do this, you're going to have 4 pages to fill now. Okay. So you have 2 columns and 2 sides. So let's say, for example, we're going to go ahead and create something here. We're going to do this type tool. And I'm just going to open this up. I have a left click and I held it down to make a box about that size. And that's where the cursor is going to be. And I'm going to say, this is a test page. Okay. Now, I want to be able to center that. Okay, so let's go back and highlight that. Come on down over here on the right-hand side, and you can see, just like in a Word document, all these different notations of how you can move things around and center them. Okay. So maybe I want to have, okay, center it right there like that. All right. Now, that looks pretty small, so let's change the size of this, okay? Let's change it to, I don't know, let's say 24. All right, that looks good. And let's change it to, if you just type in times, it'll take you right to it. I'm going to say Times New Bold. All right, very good. So you can play around and create all different kind of types that you want. If you wanted to color this in, you could do fills, okay? Let's do a piece of music. All right, so I'm going to go to the rectangular. I'm going to open this up, and let's just make it a nice big size. I'm going to click on to my selection tool. Excuse me, I'm sorry, talking a lot. Now I'm going to come over here to place. And now, because of the last time I did it, I was on my desktop, I've got to go back and I've got to find my folder that has my TIFF files in it. So I'm going to go to my documents and my TIFF music and open that up. And now, oh, I don't know, let's do a song like this, A Bright and Shining Presence. So it's right there in the A's. So there we go. It looks like it's not going to fit the box, so let's change that. So we go to our bullseye, left click on it once, come on over here and move your margins in of the particular piece itself. That looks a little stretched, so maybe we ought to collapse it just a little bit. Yeah. Now you see this extra white space up here? You can do one of two things. You can either drag this up and make it fit there, or you could just leave it like that. Take your cursor up, click off of it, and highlight that, and bring this down so that you've got that box and you've got a lot of space. So now, if you need to move this around, you just put your arrow on there, take your left cursor and hold it down, and then you can move your mouse around, and you can move that into space where you want. Then if you need to do maybe a gospel citation, you could kind of come on over here, and I'm going to say gospel, and I'm going to say Mark, I don't know, chapter 4, verses 3 to 10. Now, maybe I want to have it so that it's on opposite sides. Well, so I can kind of move that on over here. Maybe I want to have it so it lines up exactly with the music. So I'm going to highlight that box, come on over here, drag this on over. Sorry, I recreated a box instead. Let's drag it over here. And then I'm going to go up to my text. And then I'm going to just click onto that and move it over so that it lines up exactly. And there you go. And you can do that with all these other pages too, depending on what you wanted to put in there. If you wanted to put a picture or a graphic, you can put that to fill some space. If you wanted to type the creed, you could do that as well too. And then all you have to do is save. So then we're just going to save. And I'll do save as. And I'll just call it test. Now, this is going into a folder that is already predetermined from something else that I was doing. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for right now, but you can name your own folder where you want to save it and then save it like that. Now here's one more thing that I wanted to show you about this. It's really cool about InDesign. You might want to send this to somebody to proofread. There's a thing here called Publish Online. It'll take whatever document you have and it'll basically create almost like a PDF of that. Click Publish Online, and what it's going to do then is it's going to create a link that you can then put in an email, and you can then send that to whoever. So I'm going to say test, let's say test 1. Okay. I'm sorry that the phone is ringing. I'll end that. And I'm just going to give it a description. Test for webinar. Okay. I want all the pages, and I'm going to click Publish. So now it's going to go through and it's going to convert this. And it'll come up in a second here, and it'll show you the actual link. It's saved into the cloud. If you want to view it before you send it, you just have to do that. And it'll take you and it'll show you a link. Now that's what it's going to look like. You see these little cursor buttons over here? That'll take you to the next page and back again. So since we didn't do anything on that second page. So that's what it would look like, even if you printed it, okay? So if you like how it looked and you want to be able to send it to somebody, this would be the URL link. Just hit copy. And then if you wanted to email it to somebody, just, I'm going to say, email it to myself. Okay. And I'll say test link. And here, I'm going to do the shortcut, which is Control V. And now you've got the link. Okay. That way, you don't have to scan anything. All you have to do is create that, send that as a link. When it is sent, that person will be able to click onto that and see exactly what you just did. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any other questions, why don't we just talk about that in our question section? You can type the questions in and I'll answer as many as I can. Thanks for watching.